Hello. So I'm Rhys. I'm a psychiatrist and researcher at Cardiff University. I'm just going to share my screen now. So I'm going to be talking about young people and their mood and well-being. I've tried to make the slides bilingual, so it's about pobl ifanc a'i hwyliau a'i lles. And thanks a lot for tuning in tonight. So there might be lots of reasons, different reasons why you came to this seminar or this session. You know, it could be that you're a young person just interested in the subject area. It could be that you're looking for help or help for your friend, maybe, or maybe you're a parent, carer, family member who's concerned about someone, or just interested generally, or you might be a practitioner or researcher. And this has been geared mainly for young people and also for those around them. So I've tried to make the slides quite visual and quite simple. I will be referencing guidelines and research, but I won't be going in depth. So sorry if you come for a review of the cutting edge research in the area. But diolch, thanks a lot for coming. So I'll be covering, as Katrin was saying, I'll be covering mood, well-being, and especially sort of low mood, feeling down, depression, also the possible factors or the possible reasons behind that, and the ways in which young people can help themselves, as well as where to get help if needed. And again, as Katrin was mentioning, at the end, I'll mention this digital program we've developed with young people and parents and carers and professionals at Cardiff University. So first of all, thinking about mood. So this might be different for everyone, and everyone will have a different sort of meaning, but essentially we're talking about feelings, emotions. If someone's low in mood, you might say that they're down or they're feeling sad. If they're high in mood, they might be happy or elated. And then at the extremes of this, if someone's particularly low, they might have symptoms of depression, which I'll go into in a bit. And then on the other end of the spectrum, it could be that someone's elated or have symptoms of what we call mania. Well-being, again, can mean different things to different people, but this is more of a general sense of health, of being comfortable, and this relates to mental well-being as well as physical well-being. And then depression, as I mentioned, is something more severe. So if someone's particularly low or down for a long time, or if it's affecting their life in different ways, for example, it could be school, it could be family life or friends. It could be distressing, and it could be lots of different difficulties. And then that's when we start to talk about depression. And it's interesting, I've been talking to lots of young people over the last few weeks and months about, in the context of this program we've developed for low mood and depression. And it's interesting how a lot of young people do understand the difference, you know, for when people go through periods of feeling down or sadness, but that can be normal and especially understandable in this day and age. And then if it's particularly long or affecting the person's life, then we're thinking more in terms of depressive difficulties or even a diagnosis of depression. And it's really common to feel low, to feel sad, and especially nowadays, and even to feel to have some symptoms of depression or even a diagnosis. It affects around 1 in 20, depending on the study you're looking at, and it is probably more common, or it is more common in later teen life or adolescence, and especially going into young adulthood. But one of the main messages I want to make is that, you know, you're not alone. If you are going through difficulties, there is hope and there is help available. It can feel difficult to think in those terms, but what I'd like to talk about in this session is ways you can help yourself and where you can get help. So if someone's low or if someone's down, it can affect them in different ways. For example, in terms of their feelings, obviously feeling sad, but also in young people, it could be that they're feeling on edge, they're feeling angry or feeling what's called irritable. And also you can have other feelings alongside, like feeling anxious or feeling scared of things. And that can affect their thoughts as well, feeling particularly negative about things, maybe feeling especially guilty about things, that it might not be their fault. And if things are particularly bad, it could be that the young people have thoughts about harming themselves or even killing themselves. And that's something not to be alarmed by, it's something just to be aware of the possibility. And if someone is maybe describing things like that, then that's especially a time to get help. And in terms of effects on someone's behavior or the way they act, it could be that someone's more withdrawn or they're not going out as much. And of course, that's, that can be especially difficult to assess, in this lockdown or in this pandemic, but it can affect people's concentration, their sleep, their appetite, whether they're off their food or maybe eating a little too much in terms of to help themselves. And then it can also affect them physically, and there's an overlap here, obviously, with people's behavior, but some people, especially maybe younger adolescents or children, might feel that what they get going through is aches and pains or tightness of the chest, and it could be that it's a stomach ache that presents first. And so when we're talking about mood and well-being, we're not just talking about feeling sad or feeling low or feeling down. It can be a mixture of things, and it's important to just be aware. And the main thing is whether there's been a change in any of these areas, be it mentally or physically. And so if a young person is feeling low, down, if they have depression, then clearly this can have an effect on a range of different things. And it could be that it's one of those things that becomes obvious at first. So, for example, it could be problems at school or college, maybe performance with schoolwork or exams. It could be a relationship with family members, with friends, with carers. It could be something to do with their identity. So maybe it could be, it affects their self-esteem, their self-worth, but also there's a strong relationship between mental health and physical health. So we know that if someone is going through an illness, especially if it's for a long time, it's affecting them and their life really badly, then there's more likelihood of feeling low or feeling anxious. And as I said, it could be that physical symptoms like aches and pains are the things that become first, most obvious. But at the same time, I've listed lots of different aspects of low mood and depression, but every experience is different. People have different ways of describing them. And what I've just done is describe things quite verbally, but it could be that people describe things through pictures, through drawing, through play, through performance. And there are different ways of expressing how people feel. And it's not just, it can be difficult to pinpoint how people are feeling. So that's one of the things when I talk to young people is to give them the opportunity to express themselves in different ways. And it could be that they talk in terms of metaphors, and there's lots of different descriptions in which people have used through the years to describe low mood and depression. So for example, feeling like there's a load or heaviness on them, talking in terms of the weather. So for example, there's a cloud following them. In terms of nature, for example, like wilting flowers, and also like a black dog is something that some historical figures have used. So for example, if they're feeling especially low, that there's a black dog appearing and following them everywhere. And in fact, there's a research centre in Australia that focuses on depression research that's called the Black Dog Institute. And that's in Sydney, and that's a good source of information if you'd like to go on their website. I think one of the main messages I also wanted to convey is that depression or low mood, sadness is often missed in young people, and more so than in adults. And many, if not most, don't get the help that they need. And this could be for a range of reasons. You know, it could be that it's mixed up with what some might consider kind of a normal phase of teenager or adolescent years. It could be that the symptoms of the difficulties aren't very specific. It could be that the young person isn't doing very well at school, or as I said before, it could be that they're getting some pains, stomach aches, or breathing difficulties, and that's the main thing. Also, we know that, you know, when we're talking about depression in young people, we also talk in terms of how young people can get easily angered or irritable. This is something that we should be thinking about in terms of depression in adults as well. But it's one of the core symptoms in one of the criteria, diagnostic criteria for depression, and it's something that can be missed. Of course, as well, there might be a lack of resources, a lack of services, a lack of training in the area. So it might not be picked up by the right people, or there might not be the right help for the individuals. But I've been talking a lot in terms of quite negative things and negative experiences, but it's important to remember, and especially if you're going through periods of feeling sad or feeling low, that, you know, everyone has certain strengths, certain positives. It could be to do with their personality, it could be to do with their interests, the things that they're good at, the people or things around them. And this is one of the things that we try to focus on, especially when we talk to young people who are going through difficulties, to focus on these, to build on them, and to use these to get them through difficulties. So in terms of the possible reasons and the possible factors behind low mood and depression, I mean, there can be loads of different factors and reasons, and often there's lots of reasons rather than one big reason. Now, I'm just showing this image. It might seem a bit complicated at first, but you can see that, you know, when we're thinking about problems that might lead to feeling low, feeling down, feeling stressed, it could be to do with school, it could be to do with friends, family. It could be more general things, you know, especially now, you know, going through the pandemic. It could be the stress of lockdown, it could be the worry about the virus, it could be that you're away from friends, away from family members, that difficulties with schoolwork. There's a host of reasons. And so it's important to think about how there might be lots of different factors. And I just found this on Twitter, Instagram, last day or two. It was shared widely, and it's something that obviously resonated with a lot of people, and it relates to adults as well as young people, and how there's so many different things going on right now that can make us feel low, feel tired, feel fatigued. And it's something that I was just going through the responses to this cartoon, and how people are saying how it kind of nailed how they're feeling, and how, you know, it's understandable if you're going through a difficult time right now. So thanks a lot to InstaShaz, and have a look at the website, Instagram. There's a few good things there. I'm just showing this to think about the difference maybe between, you know, adolescence and adulthood. Clearly, everyone goes through changes throughout their life, but there's so many changes that happen during adolescence, be it a role that the young person goes, the different roles that they have, you know, the emerging personality, the physical changes, learning about themselves, their social circles, the academic aspects, thinking about university, about employment. And so it's no surprise that there are lots of challenges, lots of stresses, but also lots of opportunities, and lots of you know, exciting times. But when we talk to the young people, it's important to think about the context. And we know one of the main factors behind low mood, behind feeling down, stress, depression, are sort of psychological and social factors. So I'm talking about like school stress, school exams, peer relations, or getting on with friends. Bullying is a big factor, and especially cyberbullying. So that's bullying through the internet, through social media, and that's something that's been especially obvious over the last few years, and that's something that's become a focus of research and a focus of mental health services and charities as well. And so it's important to think about the world around the young person when trying to identify things that can be helped with. I mean, another factor that we researched quite a lot at Cardiff University is depression in the family. We know that, you know, if there are mental health difficulties in the family, depression in this context, that, for example, if there's a parent with depression, then the young person or child is more likely to experience mental health difficulties like depression themselves. But not all young people do. And this is not to lay blame or make people feel guilty. It's actually just to be aware and also to notice things and changes in the family or in the young person's life, and to get the right help when it's needed. So the research we're doing is to look at ways in which we can help families, carers, young people. But as I said, a lot of young people with these possible underlying factors, you know, don't experience any mental health difficulties or physical health difficulties. It's just important to be aware of them. And there's lots of scientific explanations. So probably lots of people tuning in tonight will be aware of the different psychological theories. So in terms of what's called cognitive behavioral therapy. So that's looking at people's thought patterns and the way they behave, the way they act, and the relationship between the way they think, the way they behave, and also the way they feel. And there's other psychological theories. We're thinking, for example, interpersonal theory. So about the way in which young people get on with other people, the roles they have in different contexts, for example, in school, in family life, with their friends, with their peers. Over the last few years, we've probably heard a lot more about mindfulness, about positive psychology, and I'll touch more about, on those a little more later on. But also we think about, you know, what happens in the brain. So for example, the levels of brain chemicals, or what we call neurotransmitters. So these are the chemicals that communicate or link up the different brain cells. And so we think about the levels of, for example, serotonin, noradrenaline, and how these can, the levels can change if someone is particularly low or depressed. And these can be a focus, for example, for certain antidepressant medications. So going on to how young people can help themselves. So I'm just going to go through a few things. I won't be able to go through things in detail. I'll give you some links to good websites like Young Minds that has more information on these kind of things. But probably one of the main messages is if you're going through a difficult time, if you're feeling sad or low, is to focus on things that can change. And I'll go through these on the next few slides. The other thing is to think about all the kind of achievable, maybe simpler things that you could do to make you feel better. It's quite uncommon to be able to think about one complicated big thing like you can fix and then everything else will follow. I mean, it's great if that happens, but it's trying to think about the different things you can do in different areas. And I'm sorry if this slide is a bit complicated, but I'll go through it you can see at the top here, so all of these are different things to think about if you're feeling low, stressed, depressed. And these are all possible targets for you to think about when you're thinking about things to help yourself, or if you're going to someone else for help. So first of all, as I've just been talking about, these are on the top left here, possible reasons, possible triggers for you feeling low. So it could be that some stress at school, or it could be not getting on with friends, for example. And this can make you feel, negative about things, maybe affects your confidence, maybe your self-worth. And then this can make you feel low or stressed or anxious. And then maybe this affects your concentration or makes you feel more withdrawn, less likely to go out and meet friends or perform well in school. And then, there's this vicious cycle that makes you feel less confident again, maybe affects your self-worth even further and makes you feel even more down. But it works as well in terms of, good things, positive things that happen in your life. If something positive happens, then you're more likely to have more positive thoughts or more happier thoughts, and then that can improve your mood. That can make you feel more confident to go out or to achieve things, and so forth. But probably the main message is that, you can think about each of these areas and how they're all interconnected, and how you can actually do small achievable things to create change in one of these areas. So for example, it could be that if you're going through a difficult time at school, then is to talk to somebody you trust, whether it's a parent or carer or tutor, to see if there's something that can be changed, for example, in terms of the workload or study skills, or what's achievable and what's expected. There are things that you can do that might change your behavior. So it could be that the way you approach the studying, or the way you mix with friends, or other things that I'll go on to now. But the main thing is that through maybe lots of small changes, that then that can lead to feeling better, and changing what you do can change how you feel and think. This might sound simple, but also it can be really difficult if you're feeling really down. So, one of the first things is to think about all the things that might help you, you in particular. Everyone's different, and everyone reacts differently to different things. So it could be when you're feeling especially stressed or low, that you turn to things that know lifts you. So for example, special music, or a film, or a book, or a long walk, or a special exercise, talking to someone you trust. There are also specific exercises like breathing exercises, muscular relaxation exercises. So when I'm talking about breathing, I'm talking about, for example, taking a deep breath, counting up to 3 as you're taking the deep breath, and then counting down again as you're breathing out. There are links to websites that I'll give with more detail on that. And also, you've got to think about your own situation as well. If you have breathing problems, or if you have asthma, for example, then clearly there are things that you need to take into account. But there are other things like some mindfulness techniques you can find on websites. Coping kits is one thing that people find helpful. So for example, getting a box together where things that that you can touch or feel that make you feel better. So some people think maybe some bubble wrap, or things that you can pop, or your favorite chocolate, or book, or comic, or whatever. So something that you can turn to quickly if you're feeling especially stressed, and make you think more about the here and now. It might be, as I just said, that you turn to someone you trust to talk to through different stresses in your life, or think about how you can solve different problems or work things out. One approach is to take a stepwise approach, so that you think about write down what is the problem, what is the stress at the moment. Think about the different solutions, the different answers, the different ways that you can help yourself, and rate, the different pros and cons, the different advantages and disadvantages of doing each of these things. And it might be that you need to talk to someone to think through this properly. And then you try out one of these things. If it doesn't work, then you think about, what didn't go right, but also you plan what might you do if it doesn't go as you wanted. And then you try something else. It might be that you need to go through different ways of dealing with things to find the right way. I mean, planning things is something that can help a lot of people. So maybe planning your days ahead, your weeks ahead, thinking about the things that bring you joy, bring you happiness, but also things that where you feel you've achieved things. Also, maybe bringing in some physical activity or exercise can help. Thinking about ways of mixing or connecting with other people. And there are some things that you just need to do and tick off your to-do list, and you'll feel better having done that. But it's important to take small steps. And again, it might be that you need to talk to someone you trust about planning this. You can write things down, you can put things in your calendar, you can keep a diary, but all of these are important, and maybe especially during this lockdown. And this can be especially difficult for some people to think about healthy living. It can sound a bit preachy, but we do know that exercise can help with your mental health. And this doesn't need to be running marathons. It can be going for a long walk. It could be something that you enjoy doing. It could be that you enjoy gardening, for example, or a particular sport. But again, there are limits to that with a lockdown. Also thinking about your diet. I mean, energy drinks, junk food can be a problem. It can be obviously a short-term way of dealing with things, but in the long term, it's thinking about things that are achievable. For example, the 5-a-day fruit and veg message. And also we know that if someone's going through lots of difficulties, especially in later adolescence, young adulthood, then it's possible to turn to alcohol, to drugs, to get some relaxation, to get some relief. But we know also that that can cause or lead to low mood, to stress, to depression, and so on. Right. So it's good to keep an eye on things like that and to try and cut down and not to get into that habit. And we heard from Katie last night as well about sleep and what's called sleep hygiene. So we know there's a link between sleep and mental health, and that if someone's going through difficulties, that can lead to sleeping difficulties. Sorry about that. But also if you have sleeping difficulties, then that can affect your mental health. So worth having a look at Katie's talk, but also looking at the links, as I mentioned, to the mental health websites that I'll give in a bit. This can be a bit more tricky, so thinking about things differently. And this is something that you might go through if you're going through, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy. So this is about taking a step back, taking a more balanced view of things. So if someone's particularly low, then they're more likely to think more negatively about things. So one example you might hear quite a bit is that, if you're walking down the street, if you're especially down, you see a friend and the friend doesn't say hello, you might think, oh, what have I done to that person? What have I upset them in any way? Is it something I did? Or it could be that that person is going through a hard time themselves, or it might be that they just haven't seen you. And it could be the next time you see them that that you find out that they have been through hard times. And it's just one example of where, you know, there could be different explanations to different events. And if you're especially low, you're more likely to think about the more negative explanation. This can be a hard thing to do on your own. I know Katie mentioned last night about Think Ninja, which is an app that can help with these things. And there are other what's called cognitive behavioral therapy apps or programs. I know Silver Cloud is something that's rolled out in some health boards. And what's called positive psychology or gratitude is something that you might have heard about as well over the last few years. And that's about thinking about, again, about the strengths, the positive aspects, about wellness and well-being. It's also about being kind to yourself, being kind to other people, thinking about the positive experiences and thoughts and memories maybe you've had. And some people suggest, you know, maybe keeping a diary and writing down these thoughts and memories each night to remember and to reinforce, you know, the good things that have happened. Again, these things can be difficult if you're going through a period of low mood. The other thing is to keep doing these things if you're feeling especially down. It can be hard, but if you're starting to feel okay again, it's still important to carry on doing, especially the first few days and weeks when you're starting to feel okay. So it's good to have kind of what's called long-term approach. And this could be done by writing things in a diary or having targets and goals. I don't mean to scare you or be alarmist, but it's also important to consider that there's lots of other things can happen if you're feeling low. You know, for example, feeling anxious, and I've just mentioned about, you know, turning to alcohol, using drugs, and all of these things are things we think about when we see a young person, or when we do mental health research. It's important because, you know, everyone has experiences things, difficulties, and it could be experiencing things differently, and goes, it might be that they have a mix of different experiences and different difficulties. And it's important to think about the physical health as well as mental health. So clearly there are times when doing things to help yourself isn't enough, and that you need to turn to services, to charities. I mean, one of the first point of call usually is someone you trust, so a family member, a carer, a friend, but it's important to think about who you can trust to talk to, and it could be that talking through things to help yourself is the way forward. Also, to be aware of what's available at your school. I know there are counselling services in some schools. There should be in most schools in Wales at least, and that's in GP services. That's one of the first point of call if you're thinking about accessing mental health services. And GPs are usually have a lot of training in mental health as well as physical health. Youth services as well as charities, and I'll show the websites in a bit. But there's a whole range of places that you can turn to. And just briefly talking about mental health services. So this can be primary mental health or secondary mental health. So primary mental health usually works alongside schools, GPs, but also links in with what's called secondary mental health services or child and adolescent mental health services. And usually the approach is education, talking therapies, and if things are especially bad, medication alongside the talking therapy. And if you feel that you need help urgently, so for example, if someone's going especially low, if they have thoughts of harming themselves, then it's important to turn to, for example, the GP, school counsellor, charities. There are helplines available as well through the NHS or charities, and these are on the websites, which I'll give now. So Young Minds I find especially helpful. This has a range of information to tackle mental health problems, and that can be not just feeling low or feeling depressed, but also in terms of bullying, cyberbullying, school stress, relationship problems. And also, as I mentioned, there's different helplines with the different groups, and it also depends on the specific problems that you're going through. And I think Katrin is going to share these links as well, if you like to have a look. I'd say Young Minds is a particularly good one. Samaritans, where there's information and helplines as well. Make Cymru is something more general for young people that does include mental health, but also a range of other young people issues. There are leaflets and blogs on the NCMH websites. Also lots of information on the Royal College of Psychiatrists websites, on the NHS website, and there's Student Minds, especially for student mental health. So briefly as well, just talking about how it's important to create a supportive environment. If you're a family member or carer or friend and you're worried about someone. And the main thing is just to be there for that young person. It could be that, you know, to be clear that you're there to talk to, that not everything is about the mental health problems or feeling low, but also to not be overly critical or judgmental. I mean, these are difficult things to do, but and there's information as well on the websites about this. And as I mentioned, it's important to be aware of the possible symptoms, the possible difficulties, and turn to help when it's needed. And, you know, I've just mentioned the services and the charities. And we know as well, it's important to think about everyone, not just the young person. You know, think about the mental health of the family, to think about the parents, the brothers and sisters. You know, guidelines suggest that, yeah, if there is a parent with mental health problems, it's important that they have the right help as well, and that this can help everyone in the family, but also not to feel that, you know, there's blame or there should be guilt. It's more about knowing when to get the right help. So finally, I'd just like to talk about a digital program and an app that we've developed with young people in Cardiff University. This is called Moodhub, or MoodHwb in Welsh, and this is what it looks like on the tablet. The main thing is, the main aims are to help to engage young people, promote self-help, help seeking where appropriate, and also social support. We're looking at young people across the age range with low mood, feeling down, feeling stressed, but also those who have depression. It's also to help parents, carers, friends, and those working with young people. It's something that we hope that could be rolled out across Wales and beyond. It would be free to use, and it could be used by the young person on their own, or with a professional, like a counsellor or a therapist. And this is just to show, you know, the intense work we did through interviews, focus groups, workshops with young people, parents, carers, and professionals. It might be that some of you have helped with the research, and I'm really thankful for that. We've published papers on this to describe how we developed it. We went from scratch, really, from initial notes and sketches through to what's called the wireframes and the screens, both the black and white and the color screens. And this is what the first version looks like. Again, there's more detail in the papers, which are freely available online. But you can see here, this is a welcome screen. There's a tagline, illustration, different what's called user pathways, one for the young person, one for those concerned about the young person, and also the different sections within the program. It's full of illustrations, animations, interactive sections like mood diary, goal setting, and useful links. And also something that can be used on different platforms, so phone, tablet, computers. And it's based on, initially it was based on what's called psychoeducation. So that's sort of about delivering health information, about self-help, where to get help, and also getting the right support. But it's also been expanded to include some of the things I've just been talking about, from cognitive behavioral therapy, positive psychology, interpersonal therapy, and about social support. I'll just show you the first part of the animation that young people will see if they log into the program. This is just to give an idea of the program.
It's normal for young people to feel down and not enjoy things sometimes. But when these feelings are severe, long-lasting, or keep coming back and begin to affect day-to-day life, this may be a sign of depression. Depression can affect people of any age, and each year, as many as 1 in 20 young people experience it.
This package is for young people, and for their families, friends, and professionals who work with young people who would like to know more about mood, depression, and other health issues. It also has advice on self-help and ways of staying well and on where to get help.
You might use it because you're having difficulties. For example, if you're feeling down or stressed, it's possible that you only have some difficulties, or that you have many, which are affecting your life a lot. You may even have already been given a diagnosis of depression. Or maybe you're worried you might have difficulties in the future. For example, if someone in the family has had problems with their mood, or if you're under a lot of stress. Or it might be used by a family member, carer, friend, or professional who is worried about a young person.
This package has been developed from talking to lots of young people, including many who have had difficulties, as well as families, professionals, and designers. It's also based on the best research available and is supported by many organisations.
It's been built so that it's safe, secure, private, and
confidential. So just to give you an idea of the programme, and of course I'm happy to talk about different aspects of the programme if you'd like to get in touch. So we've done some early evaluation on this. We've gone around South and West Wales and spoken to lots of young people through schools, mental health services, and people involved in other studies as well. And again, thanks a lot to those who've helped with this. We asked them to use, if they could use the program for a couple of months, and we asked them to do questionnaires before and after using the program. We looked at web usage as well as doing some interviews with some of the young people, and also a focus group with professionals. We also interviewed parents and carers, and we published all of this in a journal, the Journal of Medical Internet Research, which is something that Catherine will share as well. And over 40 young people took part, and over 30 parents and carers as well. And we got really nice and rich feedback from this. On the whole, young people found that it was clear, user-friendly, engaging, comprehensive, and helpful. And it did help, especially with understanding mood and depression. It helped somewhat as well with self-confidence and symptoms, but clearly this is a small sample. This is not controlled, so we didn't have a group to compare with, and we need more work to evaluate it. But yeah, there's more details in the paper that we can share. And we're about to start an evaluation or trial of this program across Wales and in Scotland as well. So we're asking young people aged 13 to 19 who are going through some difficulties like low mood, whether they would like to use the program, or also we have a group to compare with using a digital information pack. And we're asking young people through school counsellors, primary mental health teams, youth services and charities across Wales, but also we'll be doing online adverts in the next couple of months as well on this. So if you are interested, say if you work with young people, or if you're you know of someone who might like to take part, then my email's at the end, but feel free to get in touch. Or if you just want to get more information on the study or the program itself. So I'll stop there. So I know I've covered quite a bit there, and my main message is really to look out for each other, to think about everyone around you, to think about yourself, as well as everyone in the family and your friends and carers. to be aware if there's any change in how people behave or feel or think about things. And this might be a sign that someone is going through difficulties like low mood or feeling down, feeling stressed, or even depression. But also, there are things you can do to help yourself. It's best to try and do a range of simple things and achievable things rather than one complicated thing, but also to try and get help, especially if this doesn't work or if you're feeling especially bad. And also do get in touch if you'd like to learn more about the program or the trial. It's my email address there, also on social media. Those are the links again, I think Catherine's sharing. And also I'd like to thank everyone who have been part of our studies and also all the young people I've worked with and over the years who have contributed especially to developing Moodhub, but also the other projects. And these are all the other people who've helped as well, especially over the last couple of years in developing the program and with the research and with the support that that we all need at work. Okay, I'll hand back to Catherine.
Thank you very much, Rhys. So we've got a question from Kate who says, do you have any useful resources for younger kids, pre-teens, please? So do you have anywhere, I know Young Minds was something you recommended before, but do you have anywhere that you'd usually send somebody if they were to ask you that, Rhys?
Yeah, I mean, lots of the resources I've just shared have lots of good information for younger teens or younger children. I think Young Minds, especially for young people, but for example, I think the information on the Royal College of Psychiatrists website, the NHS, I think the information on their sites have improved a lot over the last few years, and they have links as well. So if you search on the NHS website. I know there are specific apps as well that have been developed. Unfortunately, a lot of them are still being researched, still being evaluated or developed. But we can circulate a list to afterwards as well. That would be helpful. And also the links, the other links I was talking about, in case anyone's missed them.
Brilliant, thank you. Is there a curriculum that schools can use to help children better understand moods, to help them identify the feelings they are feeling? Yeah,
so there are, I know there's been a range of initiatives all over the world, really. And I'm especially aware of things that have happened, studies that have happened in Australia, New Zealand, about kind of resources, sort of specific resources, but also whole school approaches. There's more talk now between us as researchers and clinicians with, for example, Welsh government and schools. I think that the main resources, I think, have been just mentioned with the Young Minds. I think that there are, or there used to be at least a section for parents, carers, teachers as well. But again, I'm happy to share links to for sort of health professionals and teachers as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, just to kind of reiterate that I'll pull all of these resources together, and we'll be sharing them on the NCMH website with a recording of this talk as well, just so everybody knows. An anonymous question has come in, and it says, my son requested counselling via our GP on the 19th of October, and his first appointment will be the 26th of February. Are charities quicker at providing this service?
Yeah, I know that there are difficulties and challenges with mental health services and all services, especially at this time.
I was just going to say at the moment, particularly.
Yeah, I know it's been, I mean, on the whole, services have tried to adapt in terms of providing, for example, video conferencing. I know in our Rhys Bevan Health Board, there's been an initiative called Coach to develop a video conferencing program with young people, and that's been that's across Wales now. So I don't know if that is something that would be available in that health board. Charities, it's worth getting in touch definitely with charities, with helplines, with some of them have sort of chat functions where young people might be more comfortable with. But also, I'd say a lot of the more basic talking therapy, self-help things that I've just mentioned probably would be the first point of call for therapists if you're seeing them as well in services. So, things like keeping a mood diary, things like having simple things to do to help yourself, exercise, problem solving. These things that you can find on websites as well, and it's probably something that you will be talked to about within the services as well. But sorry, yeah, it's going to vary as well according to the area and
the health board and Linda has just mentioned that in Betty Cadwallader Health Board, they were able to access online counselling via CAMS. So is that children and young people's mental health services? I always forget what the CAMS stands for. And she said it was really quick. So online counselling is obviously the way to go at the moment. And hopefully they'll be able to keep some of those kind of resources going in the future as well.
Yeah, it is worth, asking your GP or local school, local health board, what's available in your area, because I'm aware, for example, I mentioned there are certain online things like what's called Silver Cloud that's been rolled out, and I think that's in Cyntaf Health Board. That's adults as well as adolescents. And I mentioned the Kutch online video conferencing counselling as well. And as I said, there's different charities offer different things. So Mind, for example, as well as Young Minds and Samaritans as well.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've had two interesting questions about Moodhub. Somebody asking whether it's suitable for younger children, and someone else asking if it was suitable for children and young adults with autism or learning difficulties.
So we developed it with young people aged 13, I think. Some were even 12, and it went up to those at 19 years old. So those starting university and after school. So there's a big range there. But so the early evaluation suggested that it was helpful for all those years, but especially helpful for those starting to experience difficulties. So, for example, at school or through their primary care. In terms of younger children, from the feedback we've had from families, from young people, they think it would be accessible. It is very visual, full of interactive sections, and also I think it would be relevant for those older as well. The way we've developed it is something that should be helpful for those a bit older as well. In terms of learning disability, learning difficulties, autism, I think that's a really important question. I think what we've tried to do is something that is accessible to everyone. We did involve people with a range of difficulties and abilities in the development, and there are different functions. We've used text, image, animation, interactive. We're looking at more use of subtitles and sound as well, and speech programs. What we'd like to do is ensure that it is more accessible to a range of groups. And so I know, for example, in New Zealand, where they've developed specific programs for depression, there's been different versions as well. So for, I'm talking about Sparks, which is like a CBD program. Mm-hmm. So that's been developed, specific versions of it as well. So that could be something in the future.
Brilliant. Thanks again to everybody for joining us.
Diolch yn fawr. Thanks a lot. And again, I can't thank enough all the people, young people and families carers who've helped me and us with the research over the years. And as I said, there's always hope. There's always help available. a lot of the things I've talked about can be difficult to do, but it's important just to find the things that are helpful for you.
Brilliant, thank you, Rhys. A diolch yn fawr.
Okay.